Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 151. Dark Castle. Part 1. In fact, I was most worried about Yu Jonghyuk. He was more trustworthy than anyone else here, but at the same time, I couldn't be sure of his position. If Yu Jonghyuk shook off my hand, then my actions would be useless. Fortunately, Yu Jonghyuk was calm. He might have a violent temper, but this guy was amazingly good at controlling his anger and sent me a secret message. What are you doing? The character Yu Jonghyuk has activated Midday Tryst. The item that I had previously bought belatedly came to my mind. I didn't know that the Midday Tryst I registered at that time would still be valid. I deliberately spoke in a brazen manner. I will do this more than once or twice. You should get used to it. What? The conditions aren't bad enough for you. I know that you can't inherit the stories of other constellations. Yu Jonghyuk flinched at my words. I don't know how you know such things. In fact, declaring a nebula with me wasn't bad for Yu Jonghyuk. In the progression of the original novel, Yu Jonghyuk didn't inherit any stories here. It was due to the constraints on Yu Jonghyuk. The regression constraints. He could turn back the clock after dying, but he couldn't inherit the stories of other constellations. Incarnation Yu Jonghyuk. Is Incarnation Kim Dokja correct? Are the two of you making a nebula? The Dakibi host watching the situation stepped in. Everyone looked at Yu Jonghyuk while I nervously waited for his answer. Yes. I inwardly sighed with relief. The first hurdle was overcome. However, the real hurdles were from now on. In the complete silence, someone on the second floor laughed. The soft laugh was somewhat pleasant. I could feel Persephone's mood through this laughter. Kim Dokja, you did it after all. This is why I like you. Of course she liked me. Persephone's style fit this type of story. Thanks to her laughter, the other constellations also started to laugh. Most of them were constellations on the second floor. Unfortunately, their laughter didn't contain the same meaning as Persephone. The Nebula Vedas is disappointed in you. The Nebula Gaiac despises you. Uriel held a handkerchief to her mouth and frowned at the reactions of the constellations around her. What? Why are you like this? This is good. The constellations on the first floor watched silently. Their eyes contained a mixture of longing and worry. Maritime War God and Bald General of Justice also looked nervous. The one who was most interested was Goryo's first sword, who was looking this way. The laughter died down and more direct contempt flew from the second floor. A person who hasn't climbed to the throne of a constellation wants to create a nebula? Dakibi, does this make sense? Can any cat or dog open a nebula? The Dakibi seemed confused at all the questions that poured towards him. That Incarnation Kim Dokja has clearly received recognition from the Starstream. Along with these words, the stories I've made were projected onto the ceiling screen. King of a Kingless World. The first scene that appeared was when I destroyed the Absolute Throne by borrowing the power of the 4-in demonic beheading sword. Strictly speaking, my narrative started from there. Fragments of the throne appeared on the screen. Some constellations nodded like they were convinced, and some constellations looked at each other with astonishment. He broke the throne of divinity. Did he really open with that story? There were probably some attendees who didn't know my information. I thought I was quite famous, but I was still lacking. I suddenly looked around and saw the Russian child staring at me with blank eyes. Person who opposes the miracle. The second story was when I took down the returnee Myung Ilsang, who was a disaster. Some constellations are favorable towards you. Since the returnees were disliked by constellations, then this was a suitable story to acquire the liking of the constellations. At this time, curious expressions appeared on the faces of the constellations. What is this? It was due to the third story that appeared, where I beat up the intermediate Dakibi Paul. I was a bit surprised when I saw the screen. I only wanted revenge for Shin Yu-sung. Was it included in my stories? The Dakibi Paul screamed and the embarrassed Dakibi host quickly fast-forwarded. Then the complaints of the constellations were heard. Hey, what is that? That. Haha, it seems to be the wrong data. However, unlike the Dakibi's words, a story name appeared on the screen. One who showed contempt for a streamer. Laughter was heard from the landing of the stairs. It was Goryo's first sword who was laughing. This is crazy. Ha 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 ha. Then the fourth story appeared. One who hunted the king of disasters. It was when I hunted the shadow of the constellation Yamata no Orochi in Peaceland. The constellation's mouths dropped open when they saw Orochi killed with my electrification. The shadow of a narrative-grade constellation, he has already accumulated 4 legendary stories? Confusion spread among the constellations. The screen turned off and the Dakibi continued speaking. In any case, Incarnation Kim Dokja is now at the facing the throne of a constellation. If he gains his 5th story through this occasion. Those who knew I was aiming to be a constellation weren't confused, but the other constellations were startled. Becoming a constellation before the 10th scenario is over? He is a new constellation. I suddenly received a lot of heated gazes. Certainly, this was a formidable event even in ways of survival. There were only a few constellations or returnees who had gained the recognition of the star stream before the 10th scenario. In the midst of the increasingly confused atmosphere, it was Manu of Vedas who opened his mouth. I will acknowledge Incarnation Kim Dokja. However, I can't acknowledge the nebula. There are 2 problems. The constellations focused on Manu's voice. 1. We don't know if Incarnation Kim Dokja has sufficient payment ability. Isn't it necessary to have the minimum of funds before establishing a nebula? The coins are sufficient. Turmoil occurred again at my words. Manu stared at me with suspicious eyes. We will know once it is checked. The second problem is who will support your nebula. I gulped. It was finally the real challenge. The establishment of a nebula needs to be supported by at least 5 constellations. Do you have the support of any constellation? That. I couldn't easily answer, and Manu laughed. No, is there even a name for the nebula in the first place? I opened my mouth as I glanced at Yu Jonghyuk. The name of our nebula is Kim Dokja's company. There isn't a name yet. In addition, we will gain the supporters now. Yu Jonghyuk casually interrupted me. Are there any constellations who want to support our nebula? No one responded to Yu Jonghyuk's words. Manu laughed. I knew it. It is a waste of time. Dakibi. Continue with the story succession. At this time, someone raised their hand. The Olympus Underworld will support your nebula. Queen. The angry Manu growled at Persephone. Persephone's aura rose sharply. It is my decision. Are there any complaints? Ugh. No matter the strength of Vedas, the constellation Manu couldn't stand alone against Persephone, queen of the underworld. In the end, he turned towards the other constellations. Surely there won't be anyone else? I will support it. The voice came from the 2nd floor, and the constellations were once again amazed. It was the great sage, the equal of heaven. P. Prisoner of the Golden Headband? Really? Are you serious? I towards him in gratitude. The great sage, the equal of heaven, was picking at his ears while looking down here like it was troublesome. I don't know, sorry. I also support it. Uriel of Eden declared her support. I will also give you the name for your nebula. The nebula name is Forbidden, oof oof. The 9th rank angels around her were flabbergasted and covered her mouth. No matter her intentions, I was thankful. Now the rest of the constellations glanced at each other. The 3 constellations who declared their support were powerful enough not to worry about others. The rest were different. It was unusual for upper-grade and narrative-grade constellations to challenge Manu just to help establish a new nebula. I looked to the side and saw that Yu Jonghyuk had half given up. He messaged me. It is up to here. I would be blocked here, but I didn't mind. It's okay. My objective was achieved. What? I wasn't expecting anything. The important thing was to buy some time. From the beginning, I didn't intend to inherit the story of any constellation here. I thought of the original novel, and the banquet's ending was fixed. At this time, something unusual happened. Goryo's first sword, will support your nebula. Goryo's first sword declared support for us. Then the upper-grade constellation stood up at once. Then Maritime War God. The bald general of justice won't stay still. Once the constellations on the first floor started to support us, the constellations on the second floor and the Dakibi became greatly confused. Wait a minute. Such a random declaration of support. The next moment. The constellation Secretive Plotter will support your nebula. Huh? Secretive Plotter? Where the hell was he? You have won a provisional nebula creation ticket. Don't tell me? At this moment, the banquet hall started to shake and the space distorted. I looked up at the sky. The banquet had finally ended. They had come. This aura is? Everyone retreat. Even the constellations became nervous. The sky was greatly distorted and powerful sparks appeared. It was like the sky was splitting apart. The Great Hall. The unknown hall, which only appeared when a scenario was activated, suddenly appeared above the banquet hall. The startled Manu shouted, "The gods of the other world! How did you dare come here?" The constellations roared and raised their own aura. Then a terrible voice came from the hall in the sky. Why? Weren't we invited? Persephone and Uriel instantly blocked my ears and Yu Jonghyuk's ears. It was to prevent the foreign true voice from intruding. They stood in front of us, lowering the pressure from the hall. I'm sorry, but the party is over. It's time to go back. Then I'll see you next time. The moment Persephone and Uriel spoke, Yu Jonghyuk and I were surrounded by a transparent circle. It was the space transformation using the power of the constellations. They wanted to save us from the terrible battle that would soon take place at the banquet hall. By the way, the god of another world was a bit faster than expected. Wait. The gods of another world are looking at you. The gods of another world are looking at you. At the last moment, I heard Uriel scream. Kim Dokja. Then darkness covered my eyes. Who are you? Not recorded in the vehicle. Don't tell me. The last story is finally about to start. Hey, is it here? It is okay. What if those guys come? It is said that the Maritime Admiral and Pure Steel often come here. Isn't this the hero's grave? A dark night. Several robbers were gathered around the tombstone erected in Gwangwoman. The leader of the robbers, Lee Dongpa, frowned at the terrified people. Pathetic fools. What hero is he? Can a hero die so easily? It wasn't long ago that Lee Dongpa learned about the existence of the hero. The strongest man who saved Seoul by sacrificing his life. Of course, Lee Dongpa didn't believe the rumors. Now, do it quickly. There is no time. Before those dark scum come out. Many people were already participating in the 9th scenario, Dark Castle. However, not all people participated in the scenario, including Lee Dongpa. The main scenarios were just festivals for the smart guys like him. It is a hero's grave. Wouldn't there be 1 or 2 good things buried? Search the body as well. He might have hidden things on his body. Shit, he is buried deep. Hey, pick it up. The robbers quickly dug at the ground. Approximately 2 hours passed. We reached it. Finally, their shovels hit a lid. Their hearts were pounding as they opened the lid. A man dressed in a white coat was sleeping in the coffin. Lee Dongpa laughed. A hero? Bah. He is a sleeping princess. He is ugly. The coat is excellent. Strip it off him. Tack. Wayawa. What? Quackak. The shocked Li Dongpa fell down and started shaking. The hero, who had just been dead, was holding onto the shoulder of a robber. Then every being in Seoul heard the following message. Someone has acquired 5 stories. A new constellation is born in Seoul's night sky. Chapter 152. Dark Castle. Part 2. It had been 5 days since they entered the first floor of the Dark Castle. Lee Jae-hai ran down a corridor of the Dark Castle with the injured Lee Gil-young on her back and Shin Yu-sung. The 5th grade demon species, Dark Tracker, is chasing you. Jump. Lee Jae-hai avoided the scythe that appeared from the Dark Tracker and used demon slaying. Magic power scattered through the air as Lee Jae-hai took the children and ran with all her strength. Damn, taming doesn't work on them? I can only tame monster species. Damn. Lee Jae-hai kept cursing as she ran. There were roughly 10 demon species following her. The 5th grade demon species were stronger than other monster species. Her skills weren't enough and she couldn't use her stigma in this environment. I shouldn't have come in. After Kim Dokja's death, the morale of Kim Dokja's party was completely disturbed. They lost focus and started acting individually. To make matters worse, Yu Jong-hyuk mysteriously went missing while the 9th scenario, Dark Castle, appeared. The Dakibi had told them when the scenario first started, this scenario. Haha, maybe you'll fail. Lee Jae-hai's reaction had been disbelief. They were going to fail? The scenarios always seemed impossible, but they always won. Thus, they could do well this time. At least, that's what Lee Jae-hai had thought. Go right now. Smash all these scum. She didn't know why she had been so hasty. Maybe it was because of guilt, rather than confidence. She felt guilt for someone's death and pushed herself to the limit to wipe out the monsters. Maybe it wasn't just Lee Jae-hai. Young Hee-won, Lee Hyun-sung and the other members felt a similar sense of urgency. Thus, they prematurely rushed to the scenario area to get rid of their insecurities. After all, they were the strongest rankers in Seoul and the strongest incarnations. However, Lee Jae-hai soon realized that it was a mistake. Shit, this is ridiculous. Lee Jae-hai's power didn't work in Dark Castle. The trajectory of Kendo, which reached level 7, rarely hit, and the power of demon slaying only provoked the demons. Her sword had broken a long time ago. Jai Hyuni. Lee Jae-hai moved at Shin Yu-sung's cry and she avoided a Dark Tracker's blade. She picked up a weapon dropped by an incarnation and used sword training and ghost walk. Uni. Behind you. Dark liquid from the Dark Trackers scattered through the air. Lee Gil-young's small insects came from somewhere and were hit by the liquid instead of Lee Jae-hai. The insects hit by the black liquid experienced bizarre cell deformation and exploded. Thanks to the time bought by the insects, Lee Jae-hai was able to deal a bit more damage to the Dark Trackers. Aaak! The armor around the neck of a Dark Tracker broke and it fled. However, there were still 9 remaining. Besides, the Dark Trackers were just a joke. The really scary thing was the guy on the other side of the Dark Trackers. Demon Viscount Noslok. He had a human body with a rhinoceros head. Lee Jae-hai's body shook every time he approached. She had never seen such a monster before. In terms of individual strength, he wasn't as strong as the Flood of Disasters. If the Disaster of Floods had her power suppressed, the demons had no such thing. Moreover, Lee Jae-hai's higher strength had become a poison to her. She knew the opponent's strength, and this only raised her fear. Lee Jae-hai raised the blade and bit her lips. Thus, here. On the first floor of the Dark Castle, the ancient magic power barrier has been formed. Uni, over there. A blue room was created at the end of the hallway. It was the only resting place in this Dark Castle. Lee Jae-hai and the children rushed to the room with all their might and barely escaped from the pursuit of the Dark Trackers. It was a small space that was less than 2 square meters, but the 3 of them barely managed to fit in. You have entered the ancient magic power barrier. The special barrier will be activated for 30 minutes. If it wasn't for this safe zone being activated 3 times a day, Li Jiahai and the children might have been killed already. The dark trackers groaned as they touched the barrier and retreated. They tried to enter several times before giving up. However, that guy was different. Why isn't he leaving? The demon resembling a rhinoceros. The demon Viscount Noslok sat on the ground a few meters away, as if it knew the principles of this barrier. It is waiting. The demon's long tongue swept over his lips. Like a gourmet waiting for delicious food, he watched Li Jiahai and Xin Yusung. Xin Yusung shivered at those terrible eyes. Now what? There are no more monsters to summon. There are still 30 minutes. Let me think. At the edge of the barrier, Li Jiahai was able to see the outside world through the windows of the castle. They couldn't leave through the window because of a special enchantment, but they could see the outside anyway. Demon species poured from the entrance of Dark Castle that Li Jiahai and her companions had opened. More of them were lesser demons, but they were too much for ordinary incarnations. The demons of Dark Castle devoured and infected the incarnations of Soul. Thanks to this, many of the demon species outside the fortress were people she originally knew. Min Jaiwan and the Warang. The members of Nirvana's Salvation Church. The people she knew were walking down the streets and tearing people apart. All of this was the result of her impatience. If she had been a bit more careful. Didn't I tell you? The difficulty of this scenario is on a completely different dimension. Li Jiahai heard the voice of the Dakibi in the air and realized. It wasn't because she was strong that she could survive until now. It was because she was lucky. Damn. Damn. Foolish girl. She blamed her own impatience too late. The people who entered without preparation scattered in the maze of darkness, and she met these children. What happened to the other party members? She didn't know. Maybe they were all dead. If only Master was here. No, not Master. I wish Dr. Hyung. Li Giliang's voice was heard from behind her, and Li Jiahai frowned. Don't speak useless things, fool. You are hurt, so go to sleep. Li Giliang, who was hit in the back of the head, fell silent again, but unfortunately, there was one other person. A Juicy isn't dead. I don't know why, but I feel that way. She didn't know why these children kept on bringing up a dead person. That person is in hell. Quickly forget that ugly face. Xin Yusung showed an unexpected response to her harsh words. I really don't understand. Everyone says he is ugly, but how is he ugly? The question was a bit embarrassing. In the meantime, she had pushed Kim Dokja is ugly like a slogan. The constellations sometimes gave her coins, and she never really questioned why Kim Dokja was ugly. I mean, the shape of his eyes and nose, the whole harmony. The more she talked, the most confused Li Jiahai became. She couldn't understand where Kim Dokja was ugly. No, Kim Dokja's face didn't come out clearly. It was as if it was obscured by something hazy. Or like a face that hadn't been created yet. Why? Why couldn't his face appear clearly? Li Jiahai told Xin Yusung, it just isn't to my taste. You cried so much at the funeral. I was acting, you idiot. The constellations gave me a lot of coins at the time. Some constellations asked Li Jiahai if it was really acting. Li Jiahai bit her lips. Uni is still a long way off. People aren't all about faces. You really, Li Jiahai watched Xin Yusung for a moment and sighed. I know that much. She spoke in a small voice. Just because she knew it didn't mean she could admit it. At least for Li Jiahai, who was still immature. She owed a lot to Kim Dokja. She survived because of him. She knew. She knew it well, but she didn't want to admit it. She wanted to repay her debt while still looking good. In fact, he was a pretty helpful person. Now that opportunity had vanished forever. There is 1 minute left for the duration of the ancient magic power barrier. Li Jiahai came to her senses as the darkness in front of the barrier shook. The demon's smile widened. Lee Jai-hai realized it was time. Yu Sung. Can you pull Gilyung up? Take him away at my signal. Huh? Listen to me. It wasn't appropriate to sacrifice her life for a friend to live. Even so, she wanted to live like this. It was because of the teachings of the dead. Quickly. Run away and ask someone for help. Do it before I go to hell. Understood. Hang in there, Uni. Perhaps there wouldn't be anyone else. Still, she had to say this. Otherwise the child wouldn't leave. Lee Jai-hai rushed forward the moment the barrier disappeared. The surprised demon jumped, but that was it. The demon species surrounding her aimed for her body. Blood flowed from her white thighs and arms. If only there was a lake nearby. No, if only she could get in touch with her sponsor, whose link had been disconnected a few days ago. I don't want to die. The trajectory of Kendo was gradually disturbed and she weakened. The demon's smile became bigger. There was a big hit to the back of her head and her vision shook for a moment. Lee Jai-hai muttered to herself. I want to live. It seemed that something similar happened before. What had happened at the time? At this moment, light appeared in front of her. The bodies of the dark trackers were split into two. It was as if the Messiah had descended and waves were splitting in two. Lee Jai-hai watched in a spellbound manner. The confused demon Viscount Noslok turned his head and a powerful electric current appeared around it. There was a man in the path of light created by the electric current. Lee Jai-hai stuttered, but she couldn't make a sound. He was the one whose face she couldn't remember. He was saying something but she couldn't hear it. The next moment, the fog covering his face disappeared. The demon Viscount roared angrily. For what? She didn't know. However, one thing was certain. This time, the man's face was visible. Ajusi, is this your face? The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is looking at you. Lee Jai-hai listened to the message and smiled as she fell forward. Chapter 153. Dark Castle. Part 3. Were the words earlier referring to Ajusi? What? A new constellation in Seoul, blah blah blah, well. That's right. I smiled bitterly while staring at the demons around. I was surprised to see Lee Jai-hai's crisis, but it seemed she had been acting too aggressively. Demon Viscount Noslok. This insidious guy who resembled a rhino was a demon who ripped apart and killed countless incarnations. I knocked down a noble-grade demon at once and realized how strong I had become. Lee Jai-hai saw his collapsed body and muttered. This guy was incredibly strong. How strong are you after becoming a constellation? I didn't defeat him using my own strength. I borrowed the power of another story. Another story? Who are you? I looked over at Noslok, who was still breathing. Wait a minute. I simple stepped down and destroyed Noslok's head. You have defeated a noble of the demon world. 10,000 coins have been acquired. The item Advanced Demon's Proof has been acquired. The subspecies of the demon world will be afraid of you. Originally, killing a demon servant would gain the attention of their demon king, but this scenario was different. All demons in the Dark Castle scenario were once waiting for their new master. A few constellations are amazed by your overwhelming presence. A considerable number of constellations are questioning your probability. Certainly, the probability was questionable. My strength was currently at a level that violated the balance of the scenario. However, it wasn't because I was a constellation that I could easily get rid of Noslok. The story Messiah's Path is partially in effect. It was the absolute divinity effect of Messiah's Path. I borrowed the story, which had a special effect on demons from Eden. The Nebula Eden is asking you to pay this story quotation. I drew a cross shape in the air and heard a message. The Nebula Eden is delighted with your narrative quotation. It was annoying to do this quotation every time, but it was better than plagiarism. Furthermore, I didn't have to pay any other price for using it at this time. It was a special service that the Eden Nebula provided. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is pleased. This was all thanks to the cute Uriel. Fortunately, the banquet was well resolved. Ajusi, have you become religious? Li Jihai laughed while breathing roughly. Her right shoulder and abdomen had stab wounds. I'm sorry. Doesn't the 10th strongest person in Seoul look poor? Now is your hardest time. Don't worry. You will be better in the future. Stay still. I'm going to fix your dislocated bone now. Huh? Aak. I thought I should use the Elaine Forest essence. However, I had no items remaining in my coat subspace. I had left it to Han Soo-young before dying. Just before dying in the 8th scenario, I made a small contract with Han Soo-young and left my items with her. Then, there was only one way left. Dakibi bag. As soon as I opened my mouth, I saw the screen window of the Dakibi bag in front of me. Some constellations are questioning the use of your natural privileges. Until now, most constellations didn't know I enjoyed the benefits of the Dakibi bag because Baihyung would turn on the advertising. Now there was no need to hide it because I was a constellation. I immediately purchased the Elaine Forest essence and fed it to Li Jihai. Oof. Eat and sleep. Thank you, Ajusi. Well. Thank you for crying for me at the funeral. I will faint now, so don't talk to me. Li Jihai fell asleep. I lifted up Li Jihai and heard a familiar voice from behind me. Ajusi. I was filled with a warm sensation. I could tell the owner of the voice without looking back. Your incarnation is looking at you. I wouldn't have been able to run straight here if it wasn't for this feeling. I saw Shin Yu-sung crying and thought that parents probably felt like this. Ajusi. I grabbed Shin Yu-sung and lightly embraced her. Was I late? You are 1 week late. 1 week. Damn, I was resurrected later than planned. Let's go. I have to find the items I entrusted to someone else. A week has passed. Why haven't you come yet? Han Soo-young lay on the floor of Dark Castle and murmured to herself. It was crazy to act like this in the Dark Castle, seething with demon servants. Fortunately, no demon servants came after hearing her voice. It was because someone had already swept away the nearby demon servants while moving upstairs. Of course, it was all done by Yoo Jong-hyuk. Damn protagonist jerk. Han Soo-young gritted her teeth. 30 minutes ago, Han Soo-young had confronted Yoo Jong-hyuk here. Then she was disastrously defeated. Her body ached and her head was dizzy. The demon species? They weren't the problem. The real demon was Yoo Jong-hyuk. You scammer. How could you use such a person? Kim Dokja. She couldn't understand it no matter how much she thought. In the Seoul rankings, Yoo Jong-hyuk was ranked 3rd and Han Soo-young was 4th. Then why was the difference so large? The reason she didn't lose her life was because of her last-ditch words. Hey! These are Kim Dokja's items. Are you going to steal them? Why did Kim Dokja leave his things to you? Isn't it because I am the most trustworthy person? Then I will kill you and take them. Why you want to kill me? What will Kim Dokja think? Yoo Jong-hyuk thought about it for a while before finally letting her go. If you mention him in front of me again, I really will kill you. Then he headed up to the 2nd floor. Han Soo-young was furious when she thought about it and screamed. That jerk, ah! Abyssal Black Flame Dragon. Didn't you say you are the strongest constellation? Why can't I beat him? The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon is in deep thought. The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon says that it isn't his fault. Han Soo-young sighed. It was a scene where she would be misunderstood as having multiple personalities. This is a big deal. That jerk brought his little sister up. It is a development that Kim Dokja will clearly hate. The situation is like this, but where is Kim Dokja? The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon is asking about what you mean. You're a bastard. By the way, that jerk took all my proofs and I will have to start from scratch. Han Suyang opened the scenario window. Plus. Main scenario number 9 Demons Proof, category, main. Difficulty level, A++. Clear conditions, hunt the demon species, collect 9 demons proof and place them on the altar on the 2nd floor. Time limit, 23 days. Compensation, 50,000 coins failure. Plus. The demon servants were so powerful that the scenario was a bit tricky, but it was possible to clear if the incarnations cooperated. The major forces had already moved to the 2nd floor. She might be a ranker, but she might be overtaken by the other rankers. The Dark Castle compensation was excellent, meaning the ranking would change if she delayed even a little bit. What should I do? At this time, a group of people on the other side of the corridor caught her attention. Han Suyang thought this was better. She could take the proofs from these guys. Han Suyang SSI. Han Suyang saw their faces and sighed. What the hell is this? Someone cried out. Han Suyang replied, I was just fighting the demon servants and was hurt. Li Hyansung SSI also entered the maze? That's correct. Are you alright? He was the genuine steel Li Hyansung. Why did this guy appear here? Kim Dokja's companion, Li Hyansung, also came here. No matter how urgent the situation, she couldn't take away the proofs of the main characters, eh? Li Hyansung SSI. Don't go over. The shrill shout came from a beautiful face. The 4 people who appeared with Li Hyansung weren't anyone Han Suyang knew. The woman once again shouted, Li Hyansung SSI. Can't you hear my words? It might be a trap. That's right. Back off. Come over here. But. Li Hyansung was confused as he looked between Han Suyang and the women. Han Suyang spoke to Li Hyansung. Has your party changed? Why are you building a harem all of a sudden? I split up from the party in the labyrinth. Li Hyansung looked troubled and the other women rushed at him and pulled at his arms. Why are you listening to that person? Those wounds don't come from fighting with demon servants. That woman is suspicious. That's right. Hyansung SSI is too naive. You shouldn't trust anyone in this world. Li Hyansung was pulled back by the women with much difficulty. Han Suyang triggered detect attributes. The next moment, a cruel smile appeared on Han Suyang's face as she saw the names in front of her eyes. What am I seeing? It is them? The way that people adapted to a destroyed world were different. There were women who believed in themselves like Jung Hee-won and Lee Jae-hai, while other women took advantage of others. The even more interesting way. Li Hyansung, I didn't realize that you have an unusual taste. Huh? Don't you know they're all men? A constellation who likes to change sex is surprised. The constellation in love with a woman is aghast. The women shouted in astonishment at Han Suyang's words. What are you talking about right now? Don't frame us. It was impossible to think these people were men. However, Han Suyang knew them. They were a group of 4 who used disguise and forbidden charm to kill strong rankers or the weak. Han Suyang remembered the name of this group. Pink Kids. They had the name of a girl group, but they were all men in their 40s. She spoke to them. Hey Jessies, do you like disguising as young girls? Li Hyansung SSI, if you stay with them, you will be tricked and killed. What is this crazy bitch saying? Hyansung SSI, let's go. She is a strange person. Sometimes it was common in ways of survival to dress up as the other gender. There were more villains in this world than Pink Kids. Thus, these men could be rehabilitated. Kim Dokja might have said this. Han Suyang was different from Kim Dokja. I have to get rid of these disgusting things. At this rate, Li Hyansung would 100% be hit in the back of the head by Pink Kids. His death would have a severe impact on the scenarios. A large number of clones started to surround Han Suyang's body. Li Hyansung hastily came forward. What are you doing? She demanded, get lost. I'm going to kill them. They aren't bad people. Lee Hyun-sung didn't move out of the way. He didn't seem bewitched, but he stood firmly in place. If she thought about it, this was Lee Hyun-sung. The pink kids watched Lee Hyun-sung with touched eyes. Han Soo-young cried out in an irritated manner, "I will kill you if you don't get out of the way." Han Soo-young SSI. I'm aware that you are strong, but please calm yourself. I'm also confident in my strength. Then try it. The clones ran towards Lee Hyun-sung while Han Soo-young rushed towards the pink kids. Die perverts. You can't do this. Kayak. Help us Hyun-sung SSI. Lee Hyun-sung triggered steel transformation and started to kill Han Soo-young's clones with tremendous strength. Han Soo-young couldn't help sweating at the enormous damage. He truly is the steel sword. She noticed that the pink kids were planning to run away. At this rate, she would miss this. There was nothing good about leaving them alive when she had already made a hostile impression. I will do it. She was forced to use a secret weapon. Han Soo-young smiled bitterly at Lee Hyun-sung. Do you want to see a good show? The next moment, Han Soo-young's clones surrounding Lee Hyun-sung took off their clothes. Her white skin was revealed. Lee Hyun-sung blushed as he covered his eyes and collapsed. Wayawa. What is this? Han Soo-young stepped on Lee Hyun-sung's body and flew forward. It is a naked woman. Han Soo-young flew through the air and aimed her dagger at the back of the pink kids running away. What are you? Quack. Yoon Woo-chul. 41 years old. Operated a coin farm. The other member of Pink Kids screamed as he saw his dying companion. Shit. We haven't done anything wrong. Hwang Mingyu. 43 years old. Trafficking and, what was it? Her dagger sliced over his neck. The Pink Kid's transformation was released, revealing hairy legs. Spare me. Spare me. Bang Taco. 39 years old. The children in the third episode, anyway. In any instant, only one of the pink kids was left. Han Soo-young frowned as she saw the middle-aged person trembling with fear. What did this person do? Han Soo-young wondered for a moment and was about to kill the last pink kids when magic power flew from somewhere and blocked her dagger. Then a clear voice was heard. You made a mistake. What? You shouldn't kill this person. He is needed for my strategy. She turned her head and sighed with relief. Han Soo-young laughed. You are late, Kim Dokja.